A couple of nights ago on stream, someone proposed watching every video game movie ever made and then ranking them from best to worst to find like the definitive best video game adaptation. And I really liked that idea, so that's exactly what I'm doing. And I wanted to kick this off by starting with the Silent Hill movies.
To find your daughter, you must face the darkness of hell.
It's okay, baby. Mommy's coming.
There's one from 2006 and one from 2012. I vaguely recall watching them when I was younger, but I don't really remember shit about them. I just know a lot of people consider them to be an affront to God, like a huge insult to the franchise. There's a lot of people that really hate them, but as with everything, I approach it with an open mind and open cheeks, so I was going into this with a blank slate, ready to either be impressed or depressed. I started with Silent Hill 2006.
Marker?
It's directed by Christoph Gans. He was a fan of Silent Hill and pitched this idea to bring it to life on the big screen, and interestingly enough, he is still closely tied to Silent Hill to this day and is actually slated to helm a new Silent Hill movie called Return to Silent Hill. So is that hopeless or hype? Well, if Silent Hill 06 is anything to go by, I'm pretty fucking hyped for it.
The painting was done by a scenic artist here in Toronto. His name is John Fraser, and he probably spent 3 weeks working on the painting at night while we were building the set around him. He'd come in afterward as we went home, and he'd put the lights on and paint away. We'd come in the morning and there'd be a little more built. We actually took pictures of some of the art department people in some of the costumes of the and painted them into the painting. You probably wouldn't be able to pick them out, but there are a few art department people in there.
I don't know why people poo-poo and spit on Silent Hill 06. Like, it's not like Sonic 06, you know, where it's like irredeemable dog shit or anything.
What the hell is even that?
This movie's pretty good. It's got tons of flaws, sure, but as far as video game adaptations go, especially for that era, it does a really decent job and makes a very, like, passionate attempt to capture what made the game special. And I think it's very clear immediately with its music. So, the music is actually just taken from the games. It comes from the legendary Akira Yamaoka. They actually just re-recorded that soundtrack for the games and put it into the Silent Hill movie, and it feels so nice. It's very refreshing that they didn't try and like reinvent the condom here. They didn't hire fucking Paul Post and the Funky Boys from Fiverr to try and like reimagine a Silent Hill OST for this movie or anything stupid like that. They just said, we know you guys like this music, I like this music, it's coming in the film, we're re-recording it, making it fresh. I really appreciated that. It was clear from the very beginning of this movie. So now let's dive into the actual spaghetti and meatballs of Silent Hill 2006. It is a film that's trying to loosely adapt the first game. Like, they are getting across similar characters but used in different ways, and the story deviates pretty substantially from the games. It does use a lot of similar ideas and a lot of similar beats. And I think it does a decent balance of integrating its new stuff with what's been established in the games. It's not perfect, and there's definitely some wonkiness to it, but it's a good attempt at blending these two things together. The film starts with Rose, and her daughter Sharon is sleepwalking, and she finds Sharon on a huge cliffside about to like plunge to her death because she's in a trance and envisioning going home. Home being Silent Hill. And Rose is able to stop her from killing herself just in the nick of time. It eventually leads Rose and Harry being a character you'll know from the games, to really get curious about Silent Hill. Rose becomes consumed with the idea of bringing her daughter to Silent Hill to try and help her, to try and heal her with what's happening. Harry's very against it.
Have you actually read the websites, Rose?
Yes, Chris. Just trust me on this. Please, just trust me on this.
And what they've done, when this deviates from the games quite a bit, is they've turned Silent Hill, like the mythos of it, into more of just like a tainted ghost town. So you have like the really cliche thing of Harry scrambling away on the computer like he's hacking in there, reading about Silent Hill and this coal fire that's constantly burning underground. He's like, don't go! That's the place of evil! Really, there's a lot of dialogue in this movie that's a little silly and at times pretty cringe.
Honey, the adoption people said Sharon came from West Virginia. And Silent Hill is in West Virginia. I'm not giving up on her, Chris.
But I'm willing to write that off and give it a pass, because even in the games, that's become like a core part of their identity. Some of that like cheesiness in there and the way they talk sometimes being very unnatural and odd.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
So I didn't mind it that much in this movie, though I don't know if it was fully intentional a lot of the times. Anyway, though, Rose and Sharon are on their way to Silent Hill. A cop, Sybil Bennett, happens to take notice of something being a little off about the adventure when they stop for gas. And it leads to Sybil kind of chasing them, pulling them over, and then Rose, she goes pedal to the metal, Dominic Toretto mode, speeds off. It leads to a low-speed pursuit. They both crash and end up in Silent Hill. Sharon's missing. Now we are in Silent Hill with Rose and Sybil as they try and figure out what the fuck is going on.
My daughter.
Sharon, she's in danger.
If you really cared about that little girl, you wouldn't have sped off.
Listen to me. She's ill.
When they get to Silent Hill, I was actually really impressed with how hard they tried to be faithful to the atmosphere of the games. Like, it's not perfect. It's always a really tall order to try and mimic that amazing atmosphere of a Silent Hill game, but the movie I actually thought did a really decent attempt. Like, they have it be like ash that's falling on them, they have the fog, there's even ways they film it sometimes where Rose is going through Silent Hill where they do like a fixed camera section. So there's multiple times where she'll be wandering through with like the lighter out in a fixed camera and you'll see her walk by and then like go to the next zone, wandering these tight hallways. I was really impressed. It was very clear that they played the games and had a deep respect for the games. I'll be totally honest with you, sports fans. For the first 30-ish minutes of this movie, I was scratching my head wondering what all the hate was for. Like, what's all the hoopla about this being bad? Like, yeah, it's not perfect or anything so far, but this is a 2006 video game adaptation. You wouldn't even use the word good in the same paragraph when talking about one of those from that era.
Well, I can't read.
And this one out here feeling real decent right now. Especially when it came to the monsters. The monster designs, pretty close to how they appeared in the games, and this movie used almost entirely practical effects. They would have latex suits and makeup on like dancers and shit to do like the nurses and to do a lot of the other monsters. They did a great job in that department, I thought. Now, it's not to say there's no CGI here. There is some, and it is dated. It's 2006, of course. It's not going to be amazing in that department, but it's used sporadically. It's not like the bread and butter here. They really tried to use practical effects to make it as eerie as possible with the atmosphere, and I think they did a really good job with it.
The textures, whether they were slimy or dry or wet or crumbly or whatever. The game was like the Bible.
Once they start really getting into their own story and their own ideas and characters, that's where things get very shaky. If you're familiar with the games, you know Harry. Big role to play in the games, you could say. In this movie, he gets nothing. That man is on the bench. Played by Sean Bean, whom I'm a huge fan of. But I gotta tell you something, Mr. Bean here got nothing to do on screen, unfortunately.
Rose!
He has a side plot where he's trying to find his wife and adopted daughter. In doing so, he meets some of the cops, and the cops are more privy to like the haunted shit and the horrid history of Silent Hill. So they try and like give you those little tidbits, those nuggets of lore, but that's it. He doesn't actually accomplish anything, and he doesn't ever really get anywhere. He's just always mad. Understandably mad because he wants to find his wife and daughter, but like he's only ever like talking to police, and the police are just stonewalling him, being like, "Do not go to Silent Hill. Look at the palms of my hands. They're burned." As Rose and Sybil are trying to run away from the darkness and figure out things going on, they run into Anna, who's throwing rocks at Dahlia. Dahlia, of course, is another character from the games, but in a very different way in this movie. Now she's Alessa's mom, and she's like trying to right her wrongs but feeling like she needs to be damned, that kind of thing. Anyway, though, they meet Anna, who's throwing rocks at her, going like, boo, boo, heretic, blasphemer, boo, 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 get out of here, boo. So Anna then tags along for some reason, basically just telling Rose and Sharon like everything that she knows. Like she's trying to get out all of the exposition she can in her short time on screen.
Burning the witch held back the darkness. It stopped the apocalypse.
Side tangent real quick. This is a big complaint I have about the movie, especially towards the end. A lot of what happens is basically just a character telling you, and then this happened, and then that, then there was this, and then this. We cannot forget about this when this happened because this happened and then that happened. It's just a lot of them just like filling in blanks of like narrative bits and pieces. Rose gets fed all of the exposition towards the end anyway, so all of the pieces that Harry was getting basically just get solved. Now, of course, Harry's not a new character, they just use him in a new way, or really don't use him in any way, as opposed to the video game counterpart. The movie does have new characters like Christabella, who's the main villain. She's the leader of this cult, constantly, you know, burn the witch, burn the witch.
Mr. Electric, send him to the principal's office and have him expelled!
This movie had some like real wacky shit to it, where like a lot of it was done for the sake of shock, I feel. The best example of that is there's this scene with Pyramid Head, and as they're running to the church, Dahlia kind of summons Pyramid Head there. And Pyramid Head grabs Anna, rips off her clothes, she's fully nude now, and then Pyramid Head grabs her skin, her flesh, and gives it like a titty twister, and then rips all of her flesh off, like she was ripping the skin off a turkey leg, and then throws it at Sharon and Sybil, who get blood on them, and they go, ooh. It comes out of nowhere. Like, nothing else like that had happened in the movie up until this point. Like, some people had been eaten by bugs, but there was nothing like that. It just comes out of nowhere. So it does seem like there was a huge emphasis on trying to deliver shocking moments without them necessarily being jump scares. And a lot of what the movie does is take things from the game and throw it in here, like some really cool stuff from the game, throw it in here without ever actually making it make sense. So like Pyramid Head being here doesn't really work if you know the games well. Like Pyramid Head in this movie, they don't do a whole lot to really make that work because it really doesn't.
It's all coming back! I don't like it! I don't like to think about it!
But Pyramid Head is here, and Pyramid Head does look cool. Sybil and Rose, they're being, you know, escorted by the church because they believe they had no reason to believe that they were, you know, friends of Alessa's or anything like that, heretics. But when Christabella goes to give a locket back, she notices that the girl in the locket looks a lot like Alessa, and thus she concludes that they must be burned because they're evil. Sybil has like this hero moment where she basically shoves Rose into an elevator and then closes the door behind her saying, "Go find your daughter." And then she stays behind and fights off the cult. Fights off. I'm using very loosey-goosey. She has a gun, but the gun's empty. The cult doesn't know that, so she's keeping them at bay. And then for some reason, instead of just like keeping the bluff up and leaving, she clicks the trigger, nothing happens, smiles, letting them know that there's no bullets, and then she gets beaten within an inch of her life. That was so fucking stupid. It feels like they really wanted to get like a noble hero sacrifice herein, but they couldn't write it properly. She had two options. She could have continued to keep up the bluff with the gun and just leave. It was working. Or she could have just went in the elevator with Rose. They couldn't follow them. Like, she only lasted like 10 seconds after shoving Rose into the elevator and it going down. So it's not like she bought her a lot of time anyway. She would have been fine to just go with Rose or just leave with the gun. She chose neither. Instead, she chose to just get her ass beaten by a bunch of pipes. After going through the nurses, Rose does meet Alessa. And I guess I should get into like the narrative parts of this because it deviates so heavily from the game. Even though they have characters that are from the game, like Harry and Alessa, of course, being like the main thing about this movie that moves it along. Alessa being this kid who has superpowers and basically traps everyone in this nightmare of Silent Hill. Well, her movie portrayal is very different than the game. In the movie, she's a witch. So she was bullied and abused and eventually burned as a witch. Burned by Christabella and all of the followers there of the Brethren. And while burned, she is getting more and more powerful because her hate is powering her, which leads to her basically trapping everyone in this nightmare dimension where she brings her nightmares to life to kill all of the people that had a role to play in burning her as a witch, or really just anyone there. And as her hate grew, she wanted to carve off a piece of her soul that was still innocent and could feel joy and love, and so she carved off that piece of her soul, which was Sharon, and Sharon ends up at the orphanage, which is then adopted out to Rose and Harry, which is how this all comes together. In the game, it's different. While yes, Alessa still does carve off her soul into Cheryl, that whole witch thing is never really a piece of it.
I'm no man, I'm a man. If you seen this shit.
That decision to go the witch route, I don't think is a bad call, but it's not really used overly well in this movie. It boils it down to like, Christabella and the cult, burn witch, always burn witch, we must, it's the righteous, the Lord demands this witch be burned, constantly. Just wasn't a huge fan of that change. I don't think it worked overly well, because then Christabella just becomes a really weak villain, because she's so one-dimensional. Just always, burn it! Ah, I hit my fucking foot on this coffee table. Can somebody please come burn this? It must be a witch to have hurt me. Alessa wants to punish everyone. She hates everyone. Sharon is a piece of her that's not hateful at all, but they're still the same person. And this Nightmare of Silent Hill is Alessa's creation to punish them, but she can't get into the church where Christabella and all the others are because their blind faith repels her for some reason. Rose hugs Alessa, and then they fuse together, like digivolve together somehow. Let's get towards the end, because that's where I think everything really kind of falls apart. I thought they did the ending terribly. At the end of the film, Christabella finds the real Sharon, not Alessa. Sharon was being protected by Dahlia, so they track down Dahlia and then find Sharon that way. So now they've got Sharon, Dahlia, and Sybil. All of the demons are here now, and they're about to burn them all. And they start with Sybil, whom they lower over a fire, and she burns to death. Just gets fucking torched over the fire. But it was just such a worthless death because she didn't have to. It was like, if she was just like using her thinking cap at all, she would have been fine. Eventually, after they fuse, Rose and Alessa, she goes to the church and she gives like this really big monologue, like this big speech about how she's a liar. Christabella's a liar, keeping you all in fear. You're all damned because of her. There's no witch. She was a misunderstood youth. She wasn't evil. You made her that way, and now you've trapped yourself in her hate. It's a monster you've created. Like a very cliche monologue. And then Christabella just stabs her.
No, she didn't.
Oh, this bitch is crazy.
Rose gets stabbed, and she's leaking out darkness because Alessa fused with her, and it allows Alessa into the church. So she comes up on a bed with a bunch of barbed wire and just starts slaughtering everybody, ripping them to pieces.
Oh no! Give me the strength to save you!
That's CGI, and it's pretty dated looking. That doesn't look very good. But anyway, she kills the whole cult. Rose is able to save Sharon, and Rose is saying, Sharon, close your eyes, because it's going to be very traumatic seeing all of that. But Sharon opens her eyes, and Alessa, the darkness of Alessa, creeps up on her, and the two stare at each other, and then fucking fusion dance again into one entity. So once again, Alessa has been made whole. At least that's the implication here, that Sharon and the darkness of Alessa have once again fused. So now Sharon isn't really Sharon, it's Alessa. So the movie ends with Rose and Sharon, who is Alessa, leaving Silent Hill and going back home to Harry. But it actually has a really cool final scene where when they enter the house, Harry is in the house in like the other dimension, so it keeps flip-flopping in between worlds here. And it's actually pretty cool the way that they filmed that, the way that that looked. And then like Harry thinks he smelt Rose's perfume, so he gets excited. He gets up, he sees the doors open, thinking that Rose is somewhere here, but she's not. They never actually left Silent Hill. It's still all foggy, and then it becomes clear to Rose she never left Silent Hill. Roll credits. Like, I actually think that was a pretty cool way of ending it, but the actual narrative that leads to that I thought was really weak. I thought the movie was at its best when it was borrowing as much as it could from the games. I think when it tried to make its own path with like the whole witch stuff, as well as the, you know, new villain Christabella, and like abandoning a lot of the things from the game, that's when it really lost a lot of its momentum. But I'll defend this movie as pretty good. Like, yeah, it's not extraordinary, and it's definitely not the best video game adaptation, but it's a pretty decent one. I think it's definitely overhated. There are plenty of things to not like about it, sure. It has its flaws, but it really does try, and in certain cases, succeed. I think everything they did with, like, the practical effects was great. And you don't really see that these days either, by the way. There's an over-reliance on CGI, and especially back in 2006, you would have thought that they would have done that as opposed to put all of the extra effort into making, like, these suits, these costumes, and all this makeup. And I appreciate that they did that because they wanted it to feel like the games felt. Again, for 2006, this is a good video game adaptation. Now, how does Silent Hill Revelations 2012 hold up? Not well. Spoiler alert, that movie fucking sucks so much ass. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video here. I'll just do another video for Silent Hill Revelations. That movie is horrific. That movie is terrible. Not directed by Christoph Gans, though. That was a different director. So right now, as far as Christoph Gans coming back to work on a Silent Hill movie, I'm pretty excited because I did end up liking Silent Hill 06. That's really about it. See ya.